Okay, now we know what the serious topic is, as if we didn't already. Has to do with something called Satan, exactly. The issue with the being is something we don't care about. It's a being that's guaranteed annihilation, exactly. Its problem is stemming from that. Why is it guaranteed annihilation? Because it's an evil being. It's made evil choices, exactly. This is nothing new, exactly. In that sense, its goal is to take as many people with it as possible to annihilation. Exactly. In that sense, who cares about that? God is all-powerful and all-knowledgeable, exactly. He doesn't care about that. He will teach us any number of principles in that sense. When we look at the being itself, though, who cares about its topics? God calls it Satan as a case study, exactly. Why call it something else? The case study is called Satan, exactly. The being itself is a case study in something called evil, exactly. What's the issue? What is the thing's topic, though? The issue is its guaranteed annihilation, exactly. Because it is a evil being. It has made evil choices, exactly. Its goal is to take as many people with it to annihilation, exactly. It has very key topics. When we look at its topics, it does things very specifically. Its topic is obvious, exactly. It teaches people something like a trinity, exactly. When God taught the human being, taught them the right religion no matter where they were. When a being was in any kind of context, they had the right religion, which was the one God, exactly. When we look at the religion called Christianity, we're talking about Peter, exactly. In that sense, there was no place on the face of this earth that people did not have the right religion, which is the one God, which is Islam, exactly. In the religion called Christianity, we're talking about Peter, exactly. In that sense, though, what is a trinity? Trinity is chaos, exactly. Chaos in the cosmos, exactly. What being would benefit from teaching people about a chaotic principle like that? A being that has a very specific agenda related to annihilation. When we look at a trinity is a chaotic principle, it means chaos in the cosmos. Exactly. What being benefits from teaching people a chaotic principle like that? A being that knows it's guaranteed annihilation, exactly. When a person was in any kind of context, though, God preserved the true religion. Why do we say preserved? Because of the human being's capacity to err. The issue that I refer to, and I will always refer to, is the culpability of the human being, exactly. Has to do with basic topics, has to do with the capacity to err. How does Satan do anything? Through the errant human being, exactly. Can we see him with the naked eye? As far as our previous ancestors were concerned, they were not permitted to see the being with the naked eye. In that sense, it is because we cannot bear to see something like that. In that sense, though, we know it exists, exactly. It can possess the body, exactly. It has access to the human being's bloodstream, exactly. In that sense, how do we know a being exact? Based on its service. For say, now you're talking, no. Exactly. In that sense, who benefits from teaching people something like a trinity, exactly. It's a chaotic principle, exactly. A being that is guaranteed annihilation. In that sense, when we look at anything in particular, though, how can we understand something that is called religion topics? If we know the right religion, exactly. There must be a concerted attack against the human being for that purpose, exactly. Because the being knows it's headed towards annihilation, exactly. In that sense, the being can do topics we don't care about. Exactly. It can possess the body, exactly. So what? The human being protects itself through morals, exactly. It can do any number of topics no one cares about, though. The issue is what happens when someone gets a hold of the vessel. When a person was in any kind of context, the concern is that what God is showing us is that if a person is a vessel topic and someone gets a hold of a vessel, in that sense, that is why we're in the chaotic context now. Person says it's not so chaotic, there's obviously control, exactly, but it explains the context. It has to do with the human being's capacity to err. How does Satan do anything through the errant human being? Exactly. It's obviously somewhere else. Who cares? We're talking about the being itself must be somewhere else. Must be not permitted to come into this context. Exactly. So how is it in this context? Through the very topic. Exactly. Human being is any number of mimic topics. Exactly. When a person is in any kind of context, though, a person should not fear this subject. Exactly. Why? God is all powerful. Exactly. There's nothing that happens without God's knowledge, though. Exactly. But it's a serious context. Exactly. The issue is what happens if someone gets a hold of a vessel. Exactly. In that sense, it's a case study in evil called Satan. Who cares about its topics? Exactly. It has a very specific goal. Exactly. Who cares about that goal? Exactly. It's based on the fact that it's going to get annihilated. Exactly. When a person is talking about nearly any topic, it does not make sense. When persons have specific topics, exactly. What I said previously and hinted to, a human being cannot intrinsically hate religion. It makes no sense. Exactly. It's the reason for its creation. Exactly. In that sense, there's a being. Now, that is where every other religion comes from. Exactly. Persons can understand it's a high-stake context. Exactly. We're at the tail end of it. Exactly. We're in Judgment Day. Exactly. Judgment Day is a period of time. Exactly. The first period is exposition of truth. Exactly. And the second period is what people understand as judgment when the soul is resurrected and so on. Exactly. In that sense, though, the issue is what happens when someone gets a hold of a vessel. Exactly. When a person is in any kind of context, the person is any number of obvious topics, though. The issue is whether or not persons understood that when anything reached what we could call a fever pitch, it was settled exactly. It was vessel for vessel even, exactly. We can say all the vessels are gods, obviously. But when we look at a specific context, it has to do with the basic subject. Persons must be able to protect themselves from habitation. In that sense, when it got to the bottom dollar context, it's more about the failure of the human being, exactly. But when we got to that context, it was vessel for vessel, exactly. In that sense, there were key moments where these type of things happened. When a person was in a martial context, that is what the martial context is. When a person is in a pacified context, it's the exact same context. God, even in that context, for example, in the battle between the Democrat and the Republican in the United States, exactly, God infuses the appropriate context, the appropriate speech, let's say, the appropriate phraseology, let's say, in the pacified context, exactly. So in that sense, when persons were in martial context, that is what it was. When persons were in a pacified context, that is what it was. When persons were in a pacified context, God injected the correct discourse in the context. In the next video, we will talk further.